When are we going to hear of Conor Benn proving his innocence, as he has said on countless occasions that he would do? Well, now we are joined by gentlemen from Conor Benn's team of advisors who say it's a matter of time before Conor Benn's innocence will indeed be proven. Rene Carayol, MBE, is one of a team of doctors and scientists who believe that they have gathered the evidence that proves that Conor Benn did not take a banned substance. And Rene Carayol joins us live here in studio. Rene, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Jim.
We're putting you right in the spot. What have you got?
Evidence, proof. Everything we've done has been evidence-based. So I think for the first time, we've got data, we've got analysis, we've looked specifically at what was inside Conor. We've examined that, and we believe we've got the evidence that proves that he never took a banned substance. What we can prove is contamination, yes. Structured drug testing, no.
How much detail can you go into, Rene, at this stage? I mean, what?
Well, one of my colleagues is on with me, Dr. Mohammed Enayat, and well, let's take as much detail and as much time as you like, because this is forensic. Remember, we came in 3 months ago. We haven't been here from the start. I met Conor, and Conor was introduced to me as someone who was at the lowest point of his life, an emotional wreck. I'm an executive coach. I specialise in chief executives, and I've done a number of boxers, Ricky Hatton, David Haye, Ashley Theophane, know a little bit about the boxing game, but much more about people, confidence. And there hadn't been any safeguarding on Conor. There wasn't a duty of care performed. He was hammered everywhere.
Duty of care performed by whom?
I would say the industry.
Let's be specific, such as whom?
So I would say from the testing authorities, from no support around him, and as he was just hammered and there was no voice backwards. What we've learnt in the boxing industry, this is...
Well, there wouldn't have been a voice coming back from the testing authorities because they've tested him, they've seen him fail tests. It's not their job to subsequently represent him.
I'm not sure that's correct, Simon.
Well, you may well not be because you're advancing a notion that's defending Conor's position. But surely the management team around Conor
is part of that.
And his promoters would have been the ones that would have been carrying the messages.
All the above.
Rather than imparting a particular brand of wisdom that entranced Conor in a particular position that started this horrible descent and race to the bottom.
I think there might be a grain of truth in what you say, Simon.
But
I'd open it up a little bit more. Boxing is adversarial. It's confrontational. It's zero-sum. It's in order for me to win, someone has to lose. And that's not just in the ring. It appears to us, and everything we've done is out of the ring as well.
Right, Rene. You, I know, have enlisted doctors into this process.
Yes.
One of them, as you mentioned earlier, is joining us live. So 3 of us is about to become 4 of us. Dr. Mohammed Enayat is a GP who ran tests on Benn, and he joins us live. Dr. Enayat, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, guys.
Thanks so much for joining us. So, as you can hear, your colleague Rene Carayol is here in studio in London with Simon and myself. What do you have that categorically will show us that Benn has been innocent all along?
It's been a really interesting journey working with Conor just over the last few months. I myself am a physician in personalized medicine, so I work in the NHS as a GP, but I specialize outside of that in individual biological footprints that get to the root cause of problems, whether it's usually disease state or optimal performance. And with Conor, what we identified, it was a journey. So what we initially identified was that his estrogen levels were higher than normal. And we do see that in the population, actually. It's quite common in the current society we live in. It's a functional imbalance called estrogen dominance. Thereafter, this led me to look a bit deeper in some testing, genetic testing particularly, that looks at his individual genes that are involved in the processing of hormones. We found that he has some genetic slips or mutations in the genes or variations in his genes. But most interestingly, particularly the gene CYP2D6, I won't get too technical, but there is one particular gene that's responsible for breaking down estrogen as well as breaking down clomiphene. even men, we have estrogen within our bloodstream. And so for me at that point, it became, right, it was more interesting to me at that point. We understand that he has a reason for why he's accumulating clomiphene in the first place.
And what is that reason? What is that reason?
Because his genes mean that he won't detox it or remove it as well as other people, like myself or yourself, for example. Without testing your genes, you won't know for sure. And then thereafter, it became, all right, now we know that he will accumulate both estrogen, and that's confirmed in his bloods, and clomiphene, compared to the average person who doesn't have that gene snip. The next question goes on to the levels in his VADA testing, which now falls outside of my expertise. Is that concurrent? The actual amount in his urine found, is that concurrent with taking the drug orally or from contamination from food? Because by that point in March, I think, when we started to work with him, WBC had already come out with the suggestion that it could be coming from eggs, based off a study that was done in 2022, I assume.
Yeah.
So then we sought out scientific experts in the realm of, one, clomiphene pharmacology, experts that have published more than 70 papers in the study of clomiphene itself, the drug, and how it's broken down within our body. And then also another expert from the Institute of, who's worked in the Institute of Doping in Maastricht. And they're both scientists with multiple published papers. Like I said, it was outside my remit at this point, so we sought their expertise. We passed on all the information that we had gathered, his blood tests, his genetic SNPs, and the VADA results. And then we commissioned them. And they came back to us suggesting, with further evidence, saying that actually the amount that was found in Conor's urine of clomiphene, and the actual breakdown of clomiphene, the metabolite of it, was consistent with the metabolite or the breakdown products of clomiphene if it's coming from chicken as the source.
And that's what we're now. And now we have to believe this now, do we? That Ben is a special case, and that this proves beyond any doubt.
Not so much a special case.
He's innocent of taking any drugs that were prohibited.
What our two specialists showed, who've been working on this for years, it's affected professional cyclists, athletes, tennis players, and boxers before, all having the same case. And one of the things, and Mohammed, you may want to talk about this, and what it said to us, if me and you took the same things, they may not come out in the same way based on our genetics.
I understand. And in Conor Benn's case, he came out differently because of his genetic makeup.
Doesn't it say a little bit more than that? Doesn't it say that the metabolizing of clomiphene in his system is commensurate with consuming something like eggs rather than having it doped?
Yes.
So the way he metabolizes it. But I'm interested to see how you've managed to correlate the two. I'm assuming the doctor will be able to answer this question.
Yes, please.
If we're talking about comparing the likely outcome or the reality of scientific outcome, which says clearly this metabolization of this drug has come in a certain methodology, have you been able to compare what the metabolism would look like if Conor were doping, and so that you can see the comparison? Or am I going off on a tangent that doesn't make a lot of sense?
You're absolutely right there, Simon. So there was a study in 2022 conducted that compared athletes or individuals, participants that took oral clomiphene, the injected versus eggs that had come from chickens that were injected with clomiphene.
And you can see the outcomes are markedly different.
Yeah, so there's actually a published study
but again, if we get into the territory of uniqueness, how does that then translate into the fact that Conor is a unique individual? He metabolizes, thinks something different to myself or Jim or Rene. How do we then draw a parallel between tests that have been done on other people and Conor himself?
Well, I'm coming to that. So basically, the study showed that the breakdown products, the metabolites of the clomiphene that were detected in the urine of the different participants, one from oral and one from the eggs, were different. Then the same metabolites that were found in Conor were consistent with the metabolites that were found in the participants that took eggs.
Eggs, right.
That were injected with clomiphene. So that's the second part of it. Exactly. That's the second part of the investigation.
Dr. Enyat, what many people are asking this lunch hour, looking at the messages, as you're talking, as Rene's talking, as Simon is talking at this stage, If this is a genetic issue for Conor, why hasn't the test shown a positive response, a positive result before? Why hasn't he tested positive before?
So he's tested positive twice, I believe, and then subsequently he tested negative. We know that we don't know when he consumed the eggs that came from that were injected with clomiphene, but it can stay for him up to 4 months, even longer after the consumption of eggs. He may well have had normal eggs thereafter. So we can't correlate that, but what we can confirm that the breakdown products that were found in his urine are consistent with the breakdown products that come from eggs from the study conducted in 2022.
I understand. We're going to take a quick break. As we head to it, Dr. Eniat, in a word, does this exonerate Ben?
I believe so. I believe it exonerates Ben, and we should be looking at athletes from an individualized testing perspective.
Okay, Rene Carayol, does this exonerate Ben?
Yes, but we should be having this interrogation by UCAD, not your honourable selves. It should be UCAD. And
but you will be, won't you?
You're presenting the evidence to them.
We've reached out to them. We've contacted them. We're waiting for them to come to us. And why they're not coming to us, I'm struggling to understand.
Okay, while we're on air, we'll try and contact them ourselves.
What we've found, I think, is beyond Conor. It might even be beyond boxing. And it might be for sport in general. It's what Simon was alluding to. We've found a breakthrough, something that a young 26-year-old elite athlete shouldn't go through what Conor's been through. He hit a low point. The reason we got involved, because he was an emotional low point, and I've seen that before in senior executives. There's something that I've learned the match between coaching chief executives and elite boxers. Best job in the world, toughest job in the world, loneliest job in the world. In the ring, there's someone in their corner. Outside the ring, I'm not sure I quite see that.
Right, so Ben needed help, and he enlisted your help. And you've come to his rescue in this situation.
Introduced me
like going on Piers Morgan and everything else that he did.
I don't
when
understand
seemingly
that.
Seemed ill-equipped at the time was the wrong tactical move
unprepared,
to make.
Uncoached, no narrative. Let's be frank about it.
So when did he first get in touch with you two?
So a mutual friend introduced us, just said, I need every favour you've ever owed me. I need you to see someone. In an hour, he was sitting in my office. And I saw a broken wreck. Couldn't string two words together. Emotionally wrought and just at a low point. No different to when I first met Ricky Hatton after his low point. No different to when I met David Haye at his low point. And the similarities, they've got lots of support for getting in the ring and knocking people out. I don't see a lot of support for anything else. And I didn't see it with Conor.
Do you think Ben has been ill-advised, Rene, the way he's been attempting to conduct his own defence?
It's been inappropriate. It's not been... We've got involved because there was a gap. Let's be frank. There was a big gap. And there wasn't a narrative. There wasn't any defence that I could see. There wasn't a plan. So we grabbed it and put it in place. And I speak to him every day. I have to.
You speak to him every day?
Every day.
He knows you're on with Simon and myself this lunchtime?
Yes, he does.
All right. Okay.
So we've got him in a different place now. He wasn't in a great place when he's in a much better place now.
On day one when you met him, Rene, did he say, I'm innocent of this?
Consistently without fail. And we wouldn't have touched him if we thought for a moment he wasn't.
Dr. Rene, I know your time is limited because you're a busy doctor. You've got patients to see. Many people getting in touch. You picked a very good time to be on with us. Monday lunchtime. I mean, it's peak listening time. Convince us then, Dr. Eniat, that this, as Rene is saying, this will be the conclusive evidence that Conor needs to allow him to resume his career. Convince us in layman's terms.
I think one of the, being involved in this case and seeing the subsequent questions and the subsequent conversations that are happening, it's been interesting to observe chronologically what's happened. When the WBC came out and Conor Benn himself came out and said, no, it's not because of eggs. That's been a real sticking point. And in the interview that we did with Matt, he went into detail, explained why he actually came out and said that. And it was because the defense that he was putting together with his team at the time was suggesting that there was contaminant coming from the equipment rather than anything else, right? And so he didn't even consider the fact that his own individual biology could explain why he's accumulating clomiphene in the first place. And that's why he vociferously came out and said, no, it's not eggs. And so when this was presented to him, he said, look, actually, your genes don't work and you can't remove clomiphene wherever it came from. And the amounts that you have, trace amounts, are consistent with potentially coming from chicken. But furthermore, the breakdown within your urine of the clomiphene products that you're excreting are consistent from a study that's been conducted, commissioned by and partly sponsored by the Institute of Anti-Doping. The actual breakdown products are coming from the eggs that are injected with clomiphene, and those two put together makes it really convincing.
Right. I mean, you two are professionals at the top of your game, clearly, and you wouldn't have come near us if you didn't think you had a case to offer, and that the facts were there.
Correct.
When are we going to see him fighting again, Rene?
We're not involved. Our job was about his reputation. We take no interest in his fighting, the promotion, the game. We're just here to protect his reputation, salvage his reputation. And let me be clear to the points you alluded to earlier, which I happen to agree with. When he was first charged, when he's found to have failed the test, his response was a boxer's emotional response. And I think the coaching we've done, that wouldn't happen again today.
Right. This will be conclusive.
This
will be conclusive, will it, in your eyes?
But it won't be, Jim. It will give everybody that has put clomiphene on the doping list a headache, because you've got to look at the way that the body absorbs this particular substance. And that means you're now looking at the reality of whether strict liability, because the obligation upon Conor doesn't shift. The evidence starts to move weight in a direction that gives Conor an opportunity to have a different kind of dynamic with UKED that he should have engineered in the first place, which is embracing the situation rather than going on Piers Morgan and telling the British Boxing Board of Control they can go and do one, and so can UKED. All of that are PR choices that, for whatever reason, Conor decided to make. He decided to turn it into an adversarial situation. I understand your point of view about zero-sum
I'm not
games.
sure he knew any other way.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.